Please welcome Lester Holt.
Hey guys. Well, was that a feel-good video or what? I mean, I get a little teary when I see some of that. What an exciting time, and it gives us an opportunity now to move past politics a little bit and even get above common ground. That's where we recently found ourselves as the whole world was looking upward at the trailblazing journey of 4 brave astronauts launched on a 10-day mission that brought them to a close encounter with the moon. In the process, the Artemis II mission reigniting our collective imaginations about what could be next in space. We've got 2 seasoned space travelers here to talk about the unifying power of space and NASA's ambitious goals. Jared Isaacman became NASA administrator late last year. Before that, he led private missions into space and now heads NASA's effort to land Americans on the moon in just a few short years. Suni Williams is a retired naval aviator, an astronaut who's flown 3 missions to the space station in a career that included 608 days in space. She knows a little bit about long-duration space travel. Please welcome, if you would, Jared Isaacman and Suni Williams. Great to see you. We're going to have you right over here. Suni, it's great to see you. Please have a seat. Suni and I have done several interviews, but you were always in space and I was on the ground.
Unfortunately, we didn't get to see each other face to face, so now I know that the name, face, and voice.
Well, it's so great to have you both here. Let me start with you, Jared. Obviously, those clips kind of captured the excitement that everyone experienced watching this mission. Is that something that you would have predicted would happen?
It is. Honestly, you know, and I used to get that question a lot leading up to it. In fact, from a lot of people that, you know, been passionate about space exploration for a long time and say, why isn't the world taking notice? We're about to send human beings around the moon. And
because it started looking routine.
Yeah, well, I think my point in the whole thing was back in the 1960s when there were 3 different television channels. It was a lot easier to captivate the world's interest in a great race to land astronauts on the moon and bring them back safely. We have a lot of other things going on in our lives today, but I had no doubt when those solids lit and Artemis II was underway, the world was going to pause and take notice. And then you had 4 absolutely outstanding human beings that brought everybody along for the ride throughout the whole 10-day journey, and certainly had us all holding our breath as they re-entered and came safely back to Earth.
And Suni, you weren't part of the Artemis program, but you watched like the rest of us. What was it like to see something that you certainly were part of the building blocks for that moment?
Yeah, it was incredible. I got to be down in Florida for the launch, and to actually see it happen, I mean, it really hit home about all the work that so many people, you know, it's not just the astronaut office, it's the whole NASA space, you know, contingent, as well as all the aerospace companies who have been working so hard to make this dream happen. And you just think in the back of your mind, all of those people, all of this made this amazing thing happen, and you see those pictures and it's all worth it.
I was going to say that those moments that we just showed were part of your legacy, certainly. What will happen now? You and I have talked, Jared, about this being a space race. So this is not more than just igniting the public's interest. It's getting them to buy into something that we've done before. How do you react to that?
Well, I would say that where Artemis is picking up where Apollo 17 left off. And this is covered from the time the Artemis program was established, and then we recommitted to it in the National Space Policy. It was actually signed my first day on the job, which is not just to return American astronauts to the moon, but to do so to stay, to build an enduring presence, to realize its scientific and economic potential, to build a moon base so we can master the skills that will be needed someday when we send American astronauts to Mars and bring them back safely.
That sounds so cool, but the reality of it is really, really hard, what you guys do.
It's extremely hard, and that's why we'd rather figure it out on the South Pole of the moon than before we send astronauts to Mars. I mean, that's what's so interesting. I mean, we are targeting the South Pole of the moon where you have water, ice, not to mention the crater ridges give us near eternal light. So we have power, we have water ice, so we can start, again, mastering the skills in situ resource manufacturing to make the propellant on the moon when you're days away from coming back to Earth if something goes wrong, versus trying to figure that out when we send astronauts to Mars. So not too distant future, we're going to have the capabilities to undertake a journey like that, but we're going to want to have the skills to be able to bring them back, tell us all about it.
Okay, you've piqued my interest here because this is science fiction stuff, and you're talking about this in a few years. You'll be launching more missions in 27.
Yes.
Will they be going as far as this Artemis 2?
No, so we have kind of altered our plan a little bit. So Artemis 1, uncrewed demonstration, November 2022. We launched again for the first time with crew Artemis 2, April 1st, 2026, 3.5 years apart. Not a very good cadence for a rocket that's this complicated. And then we were not going to launch again until late 2028, where we were going to try and land astronauts on the moon itself. Those aren't like good ingredients for success. We're drawing on the playbook from the Apollo era. Consider Artemis 2 a combination of Apollo 7 and 8. What's coming up in 2027, which was now Artemis 3, this is going to be your Apollo 9. This is where we're going to test the Orion spacecraft, the same spacecraft that you saw those 4 astronauts live in for 10 days, and it's going to rendezvous with both landers in Earth orbit. Right? We're going to test out the interoperability because, again, if something doesn't work the way we expect, we'd rather be hours away from being back in the water and not days. And what we learn from that will roll into Artemis 4 in 2028, and that's where we're going to land astronauts on the moon. And in parallel, we're building the moon base.
And Suni, you, as I said at the outset, you know a lot about long duration space travel. Some of it was not what you would have preferred as your mission was delayed coming home. But what does that say about these ambitious plans, that it takes a lot to make these successful? This particular mission was very successful, but they all won't be that way.
Yeah, it is hard. All of this is hard, but we've got, like I mentioned, a workforce that's up for the task and ready to do it. They've been working on these projects for quite some time, and they're ready to make the plan for the moon base. So, yes, we're going to learn a lot. This is what happens whenever we do research and development. We're going to learn a lot, and that's going to inform us for the next steps that we'll take and the next questions to even ask. So, yeah, I expect everything won't go as planned. There'll be a couple hiccups here and there, but we can survive that. We can deal with that, and we'll get better for it. Our mission was, a testament to that. We were lucky. We had the space station to pull over. Now these moon missions won't have a space station, but they will have a moon base in the future. But right now they're not going to have a space station to pull over. So we really emphasize all the T's need to be crossed. All the I's need to be dotted. We have to get it right.
Assuming that there's going to be a lot of people involved in this, establishing these moon bases, that means a long duration space exposure. You're an expert on that. What things are we not considering, or that NASA has to be considering in a big way?
Oh, I'm not sure we're not considering everything. I mean, we've learned quite a bit from living in space for a long time. We've had human presence on the International Space Station since 2000. So we've learned a lot, what happens to the human body, and we're going to transfer that as we go a little bit farther, obviously, to the moon. And we've learned about exercise equipment. We've learned about nutrition. We've learned about engineering and manufacturing, even, biomedical engineering, doing research on stem cells and DNA. Sequencing while we've been up on the space station. So the space station has provided us with a myriad of technologies that we can apply on this moon base, and as we get ready to live there for a longer period of time.
I was going to ask, would either of you be willing to take the assignment to live on the moon?
I suspect our answer would be the same on this one. Yes.
Yes.
But if I can layer on, because Suni makes fantastic points. I mean, the achievement we've had keeping human beings alive continuously for a quarter of a century above us in low Earth orbit. I mean, extraordinary accomplishment. And the next logical place is take what we've learned from there, which has been a great proving ground, and bring it to the surface of the moon, where we are going to learn entirely different lessons. We're going to go from microgravity to go to 1/6 gravity. But I can give you something else. Artemis 2, you may have noticed there was a period in mission control where the scientists jumped up and they were screaming of excitement because the Artemis 2 astronauts saw light flashes micrometeor impacts into the moon. And everybody got excited because there was a question of whether or not they'd be able to see it. Of course, we know. I mean, you just look at the surface of the moon. It takes a beating, right? But they actually saw it. And that allows us to maybe update our models of how often is it taking a beating. And if you know that, it might inform your roof design when you build a moon base. In low Earth orbit, micrometeoroid orbital debris is still a risk. Radiation is still a risk. But you get more protection from Earth's atmosphere, our magnetosphere there. You don't have that on the moon. And we're learning already now that's going to roll into future design for the moon base so we can keep people alive in that environment.
I mentioned earlier, this is a competition. You see this as a space race, the U.S. versus China.
I do.
Is that important to keep that competition up to continue the interest we have seen here on Earth?
I think it's very important. I mean, it worked. First of all, having a good competition worked incredibly well for us on July 20th, 1969. Now, also important not to lose. So this is part of what we're doing right now at NASA is we are concentrating our resources. In fact, the national space policy and the funding we receive in the Working Family Tax Cut Act allow us to focus on pulling in Artemis launch architecture so we can see that amazing moon rocket launch on like an annual basis, if not better, not waiting every 3 years, and to take the pathways we have from our CLIPS program and LTV program and cargo lander program and start to land on the moon with frequency to build the moon base. So I'd say there is a competition, but we have the mandate and we have the resources to ensure that we pull ahead in this, in an achievable pathway. And it does matter. I think it has national security implications. I think when you're able to achieve the near impossible, it sends a message to the world of what else is America capable of doing. And if you come up short, well, it sends the opposite message, not to mention all the scientific, the economic potential that comes out of pulling off an extraordinary accomplishment like that and the inspiration for everyone else to follow.
I'm going to be Debbie Downer here. This stuff costs a lot of money. And we know with Apollo 17, part of the reason there was no Apollo 18 was it cost a lot of money. How do you maintain, obviously, the interests of Congress and the interests of the American people in this, who may start asking at some point, why are we doing this?
Well, I think it's a different plan this time. Picking up where Apollo 17 left off, we're not just going back for short duration missions. We are going back to establish an enduring presence there where we can, over a long period of time, realize its scientific and economic potential. There may be a lunar economy someday where actually some of this starts to pay for itself. In fact, I've described often that igniting an orbital and a lunar economy is important so that we can realize this future in space, because it won't be what we imagine if it's perpetually funded by taxpayers. So when companies say, I'm going to build a mass accelerator on the moon and start populating cislunar space with AI satellites, and that's going to create a lot of economic potential, I love that, because that probably means you're going to need more people living and working in space someday. So
can we afford to lose the space race?
I don't think so. I think the implications I think it would be a shock across the world if we were unable to return to the moon before our rival was able to get there for the first time.
Suni, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I agree with Jared. I think the way I look at it is we want to be there first because we want to write the rules of engagement, how we operate on the moon.
Because there's going to have to be that.
Yes, and we want to be up there as a friendly place where we can all work together and find common ground in space exploration and moon exploration, for that matter. So I feel exactly like Jared. We have the ability to create those rules of engagement if we get there. And I have no doubt we have an amazing workforce that does amazing job making the impossible possible. So I think it will happen.
Shouldn't that process be started already about how everyone's going to get along and how, we're not going to end up in wars in space?
Well, we already have an outer space treaty that does establish a lot of the rules for space right now. I think, kind of moving on from how we get along, but how we establish standards to operate. That's the entire point of our phase one of the moon base, to go and experiment with things like power, so we can figure out what our power connectivity standards are going to be between our rovers and our power stations. This surface communication, it's not going to be wired. How are all these vehicles and habitation modules talking to each other, and then how are we beaming that information back here to Earth? So the whole phase one of the moon base build out is about a lot of littles to experiment and learn what makes sense before you establish standards potentially in phase two.
Suni, you just came back from overseas. What read did you get on this program? And let me ask you how important it is to continue to make it an international crew.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on my time on the International Space Station, too, how we, got a bunch of countries together, some of us not always friends at some point in time, and working really well together. I was overseas, and Artemis was going up. Everybody was glued to their TVs or glued to their phones, checking it out, checking out the pictures, seeing how we were, in doing this. And they were just amazed and really excited about it. And there's definitely I think just in human nature, we all want to celebrate when we're successful and we do exploration. I personally felt it when I came back from my mission too, not because we were going to the moon, but because we were there on the space station for quite some time, and sort of people got to know who I was in that regard. And not really even knowing me, just as strangers walking down the street, in the jetway at the airport, people saying, I'm so glad you're home, welcome back, which means I think space exploration and taking on these audacious goals draws us as humans together. They don't really know our backgrounds. They don't know, what politics we have. They don't, really know too much about my family or if I like dogs or I don't like dogs. They just were happy as human beings to have us come back home.
I want to know what she does with her cornflakes and milk later on, but I don't know if you missed that. Well, I'll tell you later. Jared, how important is it to make this a truly international effort? Can you do it if this becomes a U.S.-only show?
Oh, I think every time we've ever gone out and tried to undertake the near impossible, we never go alone. So, of course, that's across the NASA workforce, our contractors, commercial partners, but international partners as well. That Artemis II mission, I mean, obviously we had a Canadian Space Agency astronaut on board. Jeremy did a fantastic job. Only non-American to ever visit the moon like that. But they were propelled there through the European Service Module. That was what ultimately undertook the translunar injection that was able to send those 4 astronauts farther away from Earth than any humans ever before. When we announced our ignition event, where we talked about returning to the moon to build the presence, to have the moon base, more than half of the 63 Artemis Accord signatories, countries from around the world, sent representatives to Washington, D.C. And the next day, we all got together in an auditorium, and it was, how are we all contributing to this? Is it going to be scientific instruments? And I said we could raid the pantry at every one of the NASA centers, and we would still have so much extra mass and volume on all these landers and rovers going to the moon. So what does that mean? It means students in universities across America and our international partners today are working on hardware that's going to be on the moon in the years ahead. So this is going to be a global effort. There's no doubt about it.
Can we talk just for a second about the crew on Artemis II? They were teachers. They just were really good at...
Poets,
yeah. I'm trying to find a way to characterize it, but how do you view them and people like them in the astronaut corps as really making this case to the American people?
Oh, we have a great group of colleagues, and, I've known all of them since they were new astronauts, and we work with each other, we train with each other, we discuss, we talk, we try to figure out what's the best solution together, and I think they were extraordinary at it during this mission. They're living, like you all saw, in really close quarters where, your foot is in someone's face the whole time you're trying to do something, and you really have to get to know each other and understand each other to be able to live and work like that. I think what they brought to us is how humanity can work together, even in uncomfortable situations, dire situations, and how they can come out, showing us how the right way to live together is. I mean, they were wonderful, but this is what we do in the astronaut office. This is what we do as anybody undergoes something that's a little daring, audacious. You have to prioritize what's really important, and what's really important is getting the job done and being able to relay that job.
What's the most important advice you got from an astronaut about spaceflight?
Get to know your crewmates.
Yeah.
Get to know everything about them, because you will get to know everything about them.
I don't know. Don't spell it out for me, but I mean, it is pretty close quarters. It's
really close quarters. I mean, when you're doing, everybody has a day, a good day or a bad day, and you'll experience all of that together. And you come out the other side just like these guys did.
So you found common ground among the crew.
Absolutely.
And you did mention on the space station you're working with, sometimes adversary countries. Did that ever play out? Did that ever become a part of your experience? I never experienced anything like that. Politics? No, not at all. I mean, we all know, of course, we get news, so we know what's going on down on the Earth. We have sensitivities for each other's families who are potentially involved in things that are going on down here. But, on Friday night,
we used to get together and do a little karaoke and have a meal together. So everybody, you find common ground, just as, like I mentioned, human beings. What's really important? Everybody wants to laugh. Everybody wants to have fun. Everybody cares about.
Well, maybe I'll see you at a moon base and we'll do some karaoke someday.
All right, let's do it.
You guys are terrific. Suni, thank you very much. Jared, thank you very much for being here. Congratulations on the success of the mission. And we wait, expecting there's some next big announcement. So we'll be staying tuned for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.